The full moon cast its gentle light over the village of Imula, where laughter and music filled the air. It was the night of the harvest festival, a celebration of abundance and thanksgiving. Colorful lanterns swayed gently in the breeze, and the scent of roasted yams and spicy pepper soup lingered in the air. Among the crowd was Amora, a beautiful young woman with kind eyes and a quiet spirit. She walked beside her fiancé, Kelechi, a wealthy trader known for his sharp tongue and proud heart. Many envied Amora for being chosen by such a man, but they didn't know the pain she hid behind her soft smile. As they walked through the market square, Kelechi held Amora's hand tightly, pulling her through the crowd like a trophy on display. "You must look perfect tonight," he whispered. "No mistakes. Everyone's watching." Amora nodded, her heart pounding. She had learned to obey, to remain silent even when his words bruised her soul. They arrived at the village center, where drummers played and dancers moved gracefully under the moonlight. Kelechi laughed loudly with his friends, showing off his expensive attire and praising himself for his success. Amora stood by his side, quiet and still. Suddenly, a sharp pain gripped Amora's stomach. Her face turned pale, and sweat formed on her forehead. "Are you all right?" Kelechi asked, frowning. I need to sit for a moment," Amora replied, her voice trembling. Before she could take a step, a dark stain appeared on the front of her dress. Gasps filled the air. Kelechi's eyes widened in horror. "What is this?" he shouted, pushing her away. "You're bleeding. How could you embarrass me like this in public?" The crowd turned. Whispers began. Laughter. Pointing fingers. "She's dirty," someone yelled. "Shameful," another added. Amora's heart shattered. Tears welled in her eyes as Kelechi stepped back in disgust. "You should have stayed at home if you couldn't control yourself," he said loudly, for all to hear. "Go clean yourself, Amora. You've disgraced me enough tonight." Without waiting for her, Kelechi stormed off, leaving her alone. Amora ran, her vision blurry with tears. She pushed through the crowd, ignoring the stares and murmurs, and stumbled into a nearby public restroom. Her hands shook as she locked the door behind her, gasping for breath. Inside the cold, dimly lit cubicle, she sank to the floor. Her mind spun. Her body ached. This wasn't the first time Kelechi had humiliated her in front of others. There was the time he called her a beggar for asking for money, and the time he mocked her for not having a university degree. "Why do I stay?" she asked herself. "Why do I let him treat me this way?" As she wiped the blood from her dress, her eyes caught something unusual in the toilet bowl. A tiny movement. Amora's breath caught in her throat. Slowly, she leaned closer. Her hands trembled. There, lying in the cold water, was a tiny, premature baby, gasping for air, its tiny limbs weakly flailing. "Oh my God," Amora whispered, her heart pounding. She froze. Time stood still. For a moment, she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Someone had abandoned a newborn baby in the toilet, left to die in silence. Amora's instincts took over. She reached in carefully, her fingers cold and shaking, and gently lifted the fragile baby from the bowl. The baby's cries were faint, its skin pale, but it was alive. "I've got you," Amora whispered, holding the tiny child against her chest. With no thought for her blood-stained dress or what people might say, Amora burst out of the restroom, running into the night with the baby cradled in her arms. Villagers stared in shock as she rushed past. "Is that a baby? What happened? She's covered in blood. Did she try to have an abortion?" Voices filled the air like angry bees. Accusations. Judgments. Disgust. "She's wicked," someone shouted. "How could she do that to an innocent child?" another added. Amora didn't stop. Her only focus was the baby's breath, the faint heartbeat, the life still flickering in her hands. She reached the village clinic, her chest heaving. "Please," she cried out to the nurses. "Help her. She was abandoned. I found her in the restroom. Please save her." The nurses rushed forward, taking the baby from her arms. Amora sank to the floor, her dress soaked, her heart aching. As the clinic doors closed, Amora sat alone in the night, surrounded by whispers, judgment, and shame. But deep inside, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Purpose. She had saved a life. And her life, though broken, was about to change forever. The sharp scent of disinfectants filled the air in the village clinic. Amora sat in the waiting room, her hands still stained with blood, her clothes wet and clinging to her skin. The whispers of those around her grew louder, more poisonous. "She's trying to act like a savior now. I heard she was the one who dumped the baby in the toilet and pretended to find it. Women like her bring shame to our village." Amora closed her eyes, willing the voices to fade, but they didn't. Their words felt like thorns in her heart. She wanted to scream, to tell them the truth, but no one seemed to care. A nurse appeared, her face serious. "The baby is alive," she said. "Barely. But we are doing everything we can." Amora stood up quickly. "Can I see her?" The nurse hesitated. "First, the doctor needs to speak with you." Soon, Dr. Ikena, a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a weary face, approached Amora. He led her into a small office and gestured for her to sit. "Madam, you have done something brave tonight," he began. "But we need to understand how you came to find the baby." Amora nodded, her voice steady but tired. "I went into the restroom. I was running from the crowd, from my fiancé. I saw the baby in the toilet and took her out." Dr. Ikena studied her. "Are you the mother of the child?" "No." Amora cried, her eyes wide. "I swear I'm not. I don't know who left her there." Dr. Ikena sighed. "You must understand, it is hard for people to believe. You came in stained with blood, carrying the baby. People are quick to judge." Amora's voice cracked. "I didn't do this. I saved her." There was silence. Dr. Ikena nodded slowly. "We will do our investigations, but for now, your story will be recorded." As Amora stepped out of the office, she saw Kolechi standing at the clinic entrance, his arms crossed, eyes burning with anger. "You're unbelievable," he spat. "So all this was an act? You tried to get rid of the baby and now you're playing the hero." Amora stared at him, stunned. "What are you saying? You think I'm stupid?" Kolechi snapped. "You were pregnant, weren't you? You hid it from me, tried to kill the child, and now, you're exposed." "That's not true," Amora shouted. "I found the baby." "Don't lie," Kolechi roared. "You've humiliated me enough. Don't ever come near me again." With that, he turned and walked away. The crowd outside the clinic watched silently. No one came to her side. No one defended her. Alone, broken, Amora sank to her knees, tears streaming down her face. But her pain was not just for herself, it was for the tiny child fighting to live inside that clinic. Later that night, Amora returned to her small house at the edge of the village. The oil lamp flickered weakly, casting long shadows on the wall. She sat on her bed, staring into the darkness. All her life, she had followed the rules. Been obedient. Loyal. Quiet. And yet, here she was, abandoned, accused, disgraced. Her phone buzzed. A message from her aunt. "I heard what happened. Don't bring shame to this family. Stay away from that child." Amora deleted the message. She looked at her reflection in the mirror. For the first time, she saw not a victim, but a fighter. "I will protect that child," she whispered. "No matter what." The next morning, Amora went back to the clinic. The baby was still alive, but barely. She was kept in a small incubator, tubes connected to her fragile body. The nurse looked at Amora with suspicion. "You're back. I need to see her." The nurse hesitated, then allowed her into the ward. Amora stood beside the incubator, staring at the tiny baby. "So small," she whispered. "But you're a fighter, aren't you?" The baby's fingers twitched, and Amora smiled faintly. Dr. Ikena joined her. "We've named her temporarily Baby Hope," he said softly. "But she needs someone. She has no family. No one has come forward." Amora looked at him, her heart pounding. "I'll stay with her," she said. "I'll be here every day. She's not alone." Dr. Ikena's eyes softened. "Even after everything people are saying?" "I don't care what they say," Amora replied. "She deserves love. I won't abandon her." Days turned to weeks, and Amora returned to the clinic every morning, holding baby Hope's hand, whispering to her, praying for her. The village kept talking, but Amora walked with her head high. Her family stopped visiting. Friends turned away. But Amora stayed strong. Inside her, something was changing. The broken girl was gone. In her place stood a woman with purpose, ready to fight for what was right. And baby Hope, against all odds, was growing stronger. As Amora held the baby close one evening, the nurse watched quietly. "You're not her mother," she said, "but you love her like one." Amora smiled, tears in her eyes. "She may not be from my womb," she whispered, "but she's from my heart." The sun rose slowly over Yumula village, casting a golden glow over the rooftops. Inside the small clinic, the soft hum of machines and the quiet breathing of tiny baby Hope filled the room. Amora sat beside the incubator, as she had done every day for 3 weeks. Her eyes were tired, her clothes plain, but her spirit was strong. She gently stroked baby Hope's hand, whispering softly, "You are not alone, my little one. I'm here. I'll always be here." The baby's fingers moved, wrapping weakly around Amora's finger. A tear slipped down Amora's cheek, but this time, it was not from sadness. It was from love. Outside the clinic, life in the village moved on, but Amora's world had changed completely. The people still gossiped. "She's still going to that clinic. Why would she care for a child that isn't hers? She's wasting her life." But Amora no longer listened. Their voices were like the wind, passing, meaningless. One afternoon, Dr. Ikena called her into his office. "Amora, please sit," he said kindly. She sat, her heart beating fast. "The child. Baby Hope, she's stable now. She survived, against all odds. But we've reached a difficult point." Amora leaned forward. "What do you mean?" "We've contacted nearby villages. No one has come forward. No one wants her. The authorities may take her to the city orphanage." Amora's heart sank. "An orphanage?" Dr. Ikena nodded. "It's a safe place, but not a home. Not like yours." Silence filled the room. Amora looked down at her hands, remembering the baby's tiny grip, her soft breathing. "Is there a way I can take care of her?" she asked. Dr. Ikena studied her face. "Adoption is possible. But it's not easy. The village council must approve it, and they may resist. You're a single woman with no husband, no children of your own." Amora looked him in the eyes. "I want to try. She needs me." The doctor smiled gently. "Then prepare yourself. This journey will not be simple. But if anyone can fight for her, it's you." That evening, Amora returned home, her mind full of thoughts. Her tiny house was quiet, but for the first time, it felt empty. She imagined baby Hope sleeping in a small cot beside her bed, her soft breathing bringing warmth to the room. Suddenly, a knock on the door broke the silence. It was her mother, Mama Neka, standing with folded arms, her face stern. "I heard what you're planning," she said sharply. Amora's heart raced. "Mama, I'm doing what's right." Mama Neka entered, looking around the house. "You want to adopt a child that is not yours? In this village? What man will marry you now?" "Mama, I don't need a man to do what's right," Amora replied firmly. "That child was left to die. I saved her. I can't leave her now." Her mother shook her head. "You're bringing shame on this family. We raised you better." Amora's voice was calm but strong. "You raised me to care for others. That's what I'm doing." There was silence. Mama Neka sighed deeply. "You're stubborn, like your father. Do what you want, but don't come crying to me when the village turns its back on you." Amora stood tall. "Let them turn their backs. I'm not afraid anymore." In the following days, Amora began the process of adoption. She met with the village council, old men and women who looked at her with suspicion. "You are unmarried," the village chief said. "Do you have the means to raise a child alone?" "I work," Amora replied. "I sew clothes. I earn enough. I'll give her love, safety, and a home." One of the elders scoffed. "Love doesn't feed a child." Another added, "And what if her real family comes one day? Will you give her up?" Amora's heart ached. She hadn't thought of that. But she stood firm. "If they come and want her, we'll do what's best for her. But until then, she is mine to protect." The elders whispered among themselves. Finally, the chief spoke. "We will think on this. Come back in 3 days." That night, Amora returned to the clinic, her heart heavy with fear. What if they said no? She sat by baby Hope's bed, watching her sleep peacefully. "I may not have much," Amora whispered, "but I have love. And that's enough. I won't give up on you." Baby Hope opened her eyes briefly, looking into Amora's face. A tiny smile curved on her lips. In that moment, Amora felt something awaken deep inside her, a mother's heart. She wasn't just protecting this child. She was becoming her mother. The morning sun filtered through the clouds as Amora stood outside the village hall, her hands tightly clenched. Today was the day the village council would decide her fate, and that of baby Hope. She had barely slept the night before, her mind filled with worry. But deep in her heart, she knew she had done everything she could. The child she found, the one she now loved, needed her. The heavy wooden doors of the hall opened, and an elder stepped out. "They are ready for you." Amora took a deep breath and stepped inside. The village elders sat in a semicircle, their faces serious. Chief Obi, an old man with wise eyes, raised his hand. "Amora," he began, "we have listened to your request. You are a good woman, and your actions have saved a life." Amora nodded, her heart beating fast. "However," Chief Obi continued, "this is not a simple matter. You are unmarried, without a strong family backing, and raising a child alone brings many challenges." Amora took a step forward. "Chief, elders, I know I am not what you expected. But I have love in my heart. I have strength. This child was left to die, and I gave her a chance to live. Let me continue to give her that chance." The elders murmured among themselves. Then Elder Mama Uduak, the oldest woman in the village, spoke. "Child, you remind me of myself when I was young. I, too, raised a child alone. People talked, but I did not listen. Today, my son is a great man." She turned to the others. Let us not judge her by her status, but by her actions. The room fell silent. Chief Obi finally nodded. We agree. The child will remain in your care, Amora. You are now her mother, in the eyes of this village. Amora gasped, her eyes filling with tears. She knelt before them. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, elders. I will never let you down. News of the council's decision spread quickly through Yumula. Some villagers whispered with scorn. She'll regret this. No man will ever marry her now. She has tied herself to a child that's not hers. But others admired her courage. She's strong. She saved that baby. She's a real mother. Amora didn't care what they said. She returned to the clinic with joy in her heart. Baby Hope was still sleeping, her breathing steady, her face peaceful. Amora picked her up, cradling her gently. You're mine now, she whispered. Forever. That evening, as Amora prepared a small meal at home, a loud knock shook her door. She opened it and froze. Kelechi stood there, arms crossed, eyes blazing. I heard, he said coldly. You've adopted that child. Amora stepped aside. Why are you here? I want everything back, Kelechi snapped. The clothes, the gifts, everything I gave you. Amora stared at him, calm and unshaken. Wait here. She walked into her room and returned with a box filled with items, bracelets, clothes, shoes. Here. Take them. Kelechi grabbed the box but didn't leave. He looked around her small home with disgust. This is what you've reduced yourself to. A beggar raising another woman's child. Amora's eyes narrowed. I'm not a beggar. I'm a mother now. And I have peace, something I never had with you. Kelechi laughed bitterly. You'll never find a man willing to take you with that bastard child. You've ruined your life. Amora stepped closer, her voice firm. No, Kelechi. You ruined my life when I allowed you to control me. But I'm free now. I don't need you. I don't need your approval. He stared at her, shocked at her defiance. You'll regret this, he muttered, turning to leave. Amora watched him walk away, her heart calm. I've already wasted enough time regretting, she whispered to herself that night. As she held baby Hope in her arms, Amora felt something she hadn't felt in years, freedom. The chains of shame and fear were broken. She was no longer the girl who let others decide her worth. She was a mother, a protector, and a woman who stood for love. And though the road ahead was uncertain, she knew one thing for sure. She would never walk it alone again. The air was warm, and the sound of birds echoed through Yumula village as Amora stepped into the market square with baby Hope wrapped securely on her back. The child was now 6 months old, healthy and cheerful, her laughter bringing light to Amora's home. Everywhere they went, people turned to stare. Some with curiosity, some with admiration, and others with cold judgment. Amora no longer cared. She walked with confidence, knowing her path was chosen with love. She stopped by the fruit stand, greeting Mama F, an old vendor. Good morning, Mama. Morning, Amora. How is my little angel today? She's strong, as always, Amora smiled, bouncing the baby gently. Suddenly, a loud voice pierced through the air. That child, where did you get that child? Amora turned sharply. A tall man with a serious face stood staring at baby Hope, his eyes wide in shock. What are you talking about? Amora asked cautiously. The man stepped closer, pointing at the baby. That's my brother's daughter. You've kidnapped her. Gasps erupted around them. What's he saying? Is that true? Amora stole a child. Amora's heart pounded. I don't know you, she said firmly. Step back. I'm Obina, the man growled. And that child belongs to my family. My brother's daughter went missing months ago, and here she is, with you. Amora's hands trembled, but she stood her ground. I found this child abandoned in a toilet. I saved her life. She's not stolen. Obinna didn't listen. He pulled out his phone, dialing quickly. Chinedu, come now. I found your daughter. She's here in the market with a strange woman. Within minutes, the market filled with noise and confusion. People surrounded Amora, shouting and pointing. She's a kidnapper. She should be arrested. Baby Hope began to cry, sensing the tension. Amora's heart raced. Someone called Dr. Ikena. He knows the truth. Suddenly, a car sped into the market. A tall, well-dressed man jumped out, Chinedu, Obinna's brother. He ran toward Amora, his eyes locking on the baby. He froze. Amora clutched Baby Hope tightly. Chinedu stared at the child, then pulled out a small photo from his wallet, a baby girl. The resemblance was uncanny. Same eyes. Same smile. Same birthmark on the left cheek. Amora's knees weakened. Chinedu stepped closer, his voice trembling. Where did you get this child? Amora, shaken but composed, looked him in the eyes. I found her. In a public toilet, abandoned. I saved her life. I've been raising her for 6 months. Chinedu's face twisted with emotion. No, this is impossible. Obinna interrupted, brother, it's her. It's your daughter. Chinedu shook his head, his voice low. My daughter is home. With me. I've been raising her alone since her mother left. She only gave me one child. Amora's eyes widened. Wait, you have a daughter? The same age as Baby Hope? Chinedu nodded. Yes. Her name is Adis. The crowd fell silent. A heavy pause filled the air. What if they're twins? Amora whispered. Chinedu's eyes darted between Amora and the baby. Twins. Her mother never told me, she never said. Obinna muttered, could it be possible? That she didn't know she had 2 babies. Amora's legs shook. When I found this baby, she was so small. Born too early. Maybe her mother tried to end the pregnancy, not knowing she carried 2 children. Chinedu's face went pale. Obinna stepped forward, his voice calm now. There's only one way to know. A DNA test. Amora nodded, holding Baby Hope close. Yes. Let's find the truth. The next day, Amora stood outside the hospital with Chinedu and Obinna. Baby Hope rested in her arms, while Chinedu's daughter, Adis, sat quietly in the car nearby. When Chinedu stepped out holding Adis, Amora gasped. The resemblance between the 2 girls was undeniable. They looked like mirror images, same eyes, same smile, same birthmark. Tears filled Amora's eyes. Why did this happen? She whispered. Chinedu's voice cracked. Her mother came to me one night, dropped Adis in my arms, and left. She never mentioned twins. She disappeared. The nurse called them in. Blood samples were taken. The wait began. Amora couldn't sleep. Her thoughts swirled with fear, confusion, and pain. What if Baby Hope wasn't truly hers? What if Chinedu wanted to take her away? She stared at Baby Hope, sleeping peacefully. I didn't give you life, she whispered, but you gave mine a meaning. I don't know what's coming, but I won't give you up without a fight. Finally, the results arrived. Amora, Chinedu, and Obinna sat in Dr. Ikena's office. The doctor opened the file, his voice steady. Baby Hope and Adis are identical twins. Sisters by blood. Silence. Amora's words spun. Chinedu wiped his face, overwhelmed. I never knew, all this time. I never knew she had twins. Amora's heart ached. She looked at baby Hope, tears falling. "What happens now?" she asked softly. Chinedu looked at her. "You saved my daughter's life. You raised her with love. We will figure this out together." The village of Umula buzzed with whispers. Two little girls, identical in every way, had been found in two different homes. One raised by her father, the other by a woman who found her in a toilet. Everyone had questions. But only one person had the answers, the woman who gave birth to them and disappeared. Amora sat in her home, watching baby Hope, now called Zina, as she slept peacefully. Her mind was heavy. "She has a sister," Amora whispered to herself. "A twin. And I never knew." Her heart was torn. Zina had become her world, her joy, her strength. But now, Chinedu had appeared, and things had changed. She wondered, would he take her away? Would I lose her forever? At the same time, Chinedu stood in his own house, holding Adis, the twin he had raised. He looked into her eyes, the same eyes Zina had. "How could I not have known?" he whispered. "How could her mother hide this from me?" Obina entered the room. "We need to talk," he said. Chinedu nodded. "Let's find her. The mother. She's the only one who can explain." 1 week later, Obina returned with news. "I found her," he told Chinedu and Amora. "She's living in a nearby village. Her name is Ngozi." Amora's chest tightened. She had imagined this moment, the woman who abandoned the baby she had grown to love. Together, the three of them, Chinedu, Obina, and Amora, traveled to the village. They arrived at a small, quiet house. Ngozi opened the door. Her eyes widened when she saw them. She looked older, worn, afraid. "You came," she whispered, staring at Chinedu. Then her eyes landed on Amora. And finally, the baby in her arms. Ngozi's legs gave way. She collapsed to her knees, tears falling freely. "I never meant for this," she cried. "I never meant for it to happen this way." Inside her home, she told her story. "I was pregnant. I didn't want the child. I wasn't ready. I tried to end it." Amora's eyes widened in shock. "You tried to abort the pregnancy?" Ngozi nodded, sobbing. "Yes. But I didn't know I was carrying twins. After the abortion, I thought it was over. But months later, I was still pregnant. I was in pain. I went to the hospital, and they told me I was in labor." Chinedu's voice shook. "And after the birth?" "I didn't know what to do," Ngozi whispered. "I was scared. I couldn't care for a baby. I took her to your house, Chinedu. I left her with you and disappeared." Obina spoke softly. "You didn't know you had left one behind." "No," Ngozi cried. "I didn't know. Not until now. Not until today." Amora held Zine tightly. "You left her to die," she said, her voice low. Ngozi nodded, guilt and pain written across her face. "I'm sorry. I never knew she survived." Silence fell in the room. Chinedu finally spoke. "We can't change the past. But now, we must decide what's best for the children." Amora's heart pounded. "What happens to Zina now?" she asked. Chinedu looked at her, his eyes kind. "You saved her life. You raised her with love. I will not take her away from you." Amora's eyes filled with tears. "But they are sisters. They should know each other, grow up together," she said. Chinedu nodded. "Yes. We must find a way. They should not be separated again." In the following weeks, Amora and Chinedu worked together. They allowed the twins, Zina and Adis, to spend time with each other. The girls bonded quickly, laughing, playing, and holding hands as if they had always known they belonged together. Amora and Chinedu met often, planning how to share the responsibility of raising the twins. One day, Chinedu turned to Amora. "You've done so much for my daughter. I am grateful. I admire your strength." Amora smiled softly. "They are both our daughters now. Blood brought them together, but love will keep them close." As time passed, Amora found herself looking forward to Chinedu's visits. He was kind, respectful, and thoughtful. A far cry from Kelechi. One afternoon, Chinedu invited Amora to meet a close friend of his, Nnamdi, a successful businessman known for his humility and kindness. When Amora met Nnamdi, something inside her stirred, a quiet peace, a gentle connection. But Amora's heart was guarded. She had loved before, and had been hurt. Could she open her heart again? Only time would tell. The village of Yumula had never seen such a story. Two baby girls, born together but separated by fate, now reunited. A woman once shamed and judged, now respected and admired. And a journey that began with fear and pain, now leading to healing and love. Amora stood outside her small house, watching Zina and Adis play under the big mango tree. Their laughter filled the air as they chased each other, their faces glowing with joy. No one would believe they had once lived apart. They were inseparable now, twin sisters bound by more than blood. Amora's heart swelled with love. Every hardship, every tear, had led to this moment. In the weeks that followed, Amora and Chinedu continued raising the twins together, not under one roof, but with open hearts and shared respect. The girls spent time in both homes, surrounded by love and care. Ngozi, their birth mother, chose to remain distant. Guilt weighed on her heart, and though she occasionally sent gifts and messages, she stayed away, knowing the twins were in good hands. Amora had made peace with it. Some things could not be changed. One evening, Chinedu invited Amora and the twins to a village gathering. There, she met Nnamdi again, Chinedu's friend. He was polite, thoughtful, and gentle with the girls. He spoke to Amora with kindness, always listening, always encouraging. Over time, their bond grew. Nnamdi would visit often, bringing fruits, toys, and stories for the twins. He never pressured Amora, never rushed her. Instead, he gave her respect, something she had never truly known. Amora began to feel something she hadn't felt in years: hope. Maybe, just maybe, she could love again. Months passed. One sunny morning, Nnamdi arrived at Amora's house with a smile. "Let's take the girls to the river," he suggested. At the riverbank, the twins played in the shallow water, their giggles echoing. Amora sat beside Nnamdi, the wind blowing gently around them. "I've watched you, Amora," Nnamdi said softly. "You faced the worst, and you stood tall. I admire you deeply." Amora smiled shyly. "I did what I had to do." "No," he replied. "You did more than that. You gave love when you had nothing. You gave life to a child left to die." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small wooden carving, two women holding hands, symbolizing unity and strength. "This is for you," he said. "A reminder that you are never alone." Amora's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Nnamdi, seeing not just a man, but a partner, a friend, someone who truly saw her. Time passed, and Nnamdi and Amora grew closer. He helped her with her sewing business, stood by her side at the market, and treated Zina and Adis as his own. One evening, under the mango tree where it all began, Nnamdi knelt down before Amora. "Amora, will you walk with me, not just today, but for all the days to come? Will you be my wife?" Amora's breath caught. The twins, nearby, clapped and laughed, unaware of the moment's depth. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will." Their wedding was simple but beautiful, filled with love, laughter, and celebration. The entire village came, not to judge, but to honor the woman who had once been scorned, now standing proud and free. Among the guests was Kolechi, sitting quietly at the back, now Namdi's employee. When he saw Amora, radiant in her dress, surrounded by love, he looked down in shame. He had lost something precious, not because she wasn't worthy, but because he never saw her worth. Amora walked past him without a word, holding Namdi's hand. She no longer needed revenge. Her happiness was enough that night. As the stars shone over Yumula, Amora stood outside her new home, watching the twins sleep peacefully inside. Namdi came beside her, wrapping her in his arms. "You've come far, Amora." She nodded, resting her head on his shoulder. "I never thought this life was possible," she said. "But now I know, even from pain, beauty can rise." The lesson. Amora's journey teaches us that self-worth and courage can change everything. That love is not only about blood, but about choice. And that the darkest moments in life can lead to the brightest beginnings. She saved a child, and in doing so, she saved herself. She let go of shame, walked away from fear, and found the freedom to love and be loved. Her story is not just hers, it is a story for everyone who has ever been broken, judged, or afraid to dream again. Because sometimes, the life you're meant to live waits just beyond the pain you thought would destroy you.